She said it was just dinner with a friend. That's how it all started, with that one simple sentence. Don't wait up, honey. I'm just grabbing dinner with an old friend. Her tone was so casual, so light. Her smile seemed a little too practiced, a little too smooth. We'd been married for 6 years, and in those 6 years, you learn the rhythms of a person. You learn their tells, their little ticks, the subtle shifts in their voice when something isn't quite right. And that night, something just didn't fit. She came home late, well past midnight. I pretended to be asleep, listening to the soft click of the front door, the rustle of her coat, the quiet padding of her footsteps on the hardwood floor. When she finally slid into bed, I noticed it. The faint scent of cologne, a musky, unfamiliar fragrance that definitely wasn't mine. I rolled over, feigning sleep, and saw her silhouette in the moonlight. Her hair was a little messy. Her lipstick was faded, not just worn off, but smudged. My heart started to pound in my chest, a slow, heavy drumbeat of dread. The next morning, I couldn't shake the feeling. I needed to know. While she was in the shower, I did something I'm not proud of. I checked her credit card statement online. I just wanted to see the restaurant charge to prove to myself I was being paranoid. She'd mentioned a cozy Italian place downtown, one we used to go to. But when the transaction list loaded, my stomach dropped. There was no charge from the Italian place. Instead, there was a charge from a place I didn't recognize. A quick search revealed the truth. It wasn't a restaurant. It was a hotel bar. A very expensive, very intimate hotel bar on the other side of town. The lie was a punch to the gut. It wasn't just dinner. It wasn't just a friend. Days turned into a week, and the lie hung in the air between us like a thick fog. I tried to act normal, to push it down, but every time I looked at her, I saw the hotel bar. I smelled the cologne. I became an unwilling detective in my own life. I started noticing other things. Her phone was always angled away from me, screen down on the counter. She had new work emergencies that kept her late, sudden girls' nights with friends I'd never heard of. Each excuse felt like another brick in a wall she was building between us. I felt like I was going crazy, questioning my own sanity. Was I imagining it? Was I just being jealous and insecure? Then came the anniversary, our 7th. I had planned a weekend getaway, a chance to reconnect, to maybe find our way back to what we used to be. I bought her a beautiful, delicate silver locket. Simple, but personal. I thought it was perfect. That morning, I made her breakfast in bed, a peace offering. As I set the tray down, I saw it. Lying on her bedside table was a small velvet box. It wasn't the one I had. This one was from a high-end, ridiculously expensive jewelry store. My heart sank. "What's this?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She smiled, that same too smooth smile. "Oh, just a little something I bought for myself. A little anniversary treat." She opened it, and inside was a necklace. A stunning diamond pendant that must have cost a fortune. It was beautiful, and it broke my heart, because I knew she hadn't bought it for herself. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place a few weeks later. We were at a company gala for my firm. It was one of those stuffy, mandatory events. I was mingling, trying my best to network, when I saw her across the room, talking to one of the senior partners, a man named Marcus. He was charismatic, older, powerful, and they were standing a little too close. He laughed, and she touched his arm, a gesture that was a little too familiar. And then I saw it. The flicker of light, the sparkle at her throat. She was wearing the necklace, the diamond pendant. I felt the air leave my lungs. My world tilted on its axis. I walked over, my legs feeling like they were made of lead. I tried to keep my voice steady. "That's a beautiful necklace, honey," I said, looking directly at her. She froze, her smile faltering for the first time. "Marcus," I said, turning to him, "I don't believe we've been properly introduced." "I'm her husband." His eyes widened, just for a second, and in that split second, I saw it all. Guilt, recognition, panic. He knew who I was. And I knew who he was. He was the old friend. He was the hotel bar. He was the cologne. And as my eyes drifted down to his wrist, I saw a familiar silver glint. He was wearing the exact same cufflinks I had seen in a gift box in the back of my wife's closet just last week. The drive home was silent. A suffocating, heavy silence that was louder than any argument. The unspoken truth was screaming in the space between us. When we got inside, she finally broke. "It's not what you think," she started, the classic line. But I couldn't listen anymore. I had spent weeks drowning in maybes and what-ifs, but now I had the cold, hard certainty. I held up my hand. "Don't," I said, my voice cracking. "Just, don't lie to me anymore." I went into our bedroom and started packing a bag. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay there, in that house built on lies. As I zipped up my bag, I saw the little silver locket I'd bought her sitting on my dresser, unopened. I picked it up, the metal cool against my skin. In that moment, I made a decision. This wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of a new one. The next few months were a blur of lawyers, paperwork, and painful conversations, dividing our lives, our possessions, our memories. The hardest part was seeing the life we built crumble into dust. But with each day that passed, a little bit of the fog began to lift. I started rediscovering myself, the person I was before the lies, before the suspicion. I reconnected with old friends, picked up hobbies I'd let slide. I started going to the gym, not for revenge, but for me. I was rebuilding, piece by piece. One evening, about a year later, I was having dinner at a new restaurant. It was a place I'd wanted to try for ages. I was sitting alone, enjoying the food, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't felt in a long time. And then I saw them. My ex-wife and Marcus, sitting at a table across the room. She was wearing a different diamond necklace this time. They looked normal, like any other couple. And you know what I felt? Nothing. No anger, no sadness, no jealousy. Just a quiet sense of detachment. They were just two people, living their life, and I was living mine. As I paid my bill and walked out into the cool night air, I smiled. The pain had been real, the betrayal had been deep, but I had survived it. I was stronger. I had found my way back to myself. The journey had been brutal, but in the end, her lie didn't break me. It set me free. And that freedom was more valuable than any diamond necklace. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've been through something similar, know that you are not alone, and there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about overcoming life's biggest challenges. A few days later, a seemingly normal Tuesday, I was doing a load of laundry. Her favorite jeans, a couple of t-shirts, the usual. As I emptied her purse to avoid washing her keys or wallet for the 10th time, my fingers brushed against something soft. I pulled it out. It was a small, dark blue velvet box, the kind that jewelry comes in. My heart did a little flip-flop. Was it a surprise for me? Maybe an early anniversary gift? I couldn't resist. I popped it open. Inside, nestled on the white satin lining, was a delicate silver necklace. It had a heart-shaped pendant, gleaming under the laundry room light. It was beautiful, simple, and elegant. I picked it up to look closer and saw tiny letters engraved on the back of the heart. Forever Us. A lump formed in my throat. It was incredibly romantic. The only problem was, I hadn't bought it. My mind started racing. Who did? I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm and rational. Maybe there was a simple explanation. I walked into the living room where she was watching TV, the little box still in my hand. I tried to sound casual, nonchalant even. "Hey honey, found this in your purse?" "What's this?" I asked, holding it out. She glanced over, and for a split second I saw a flicker of something in her eyes. Panic. Surprise. It was gone before I could be sure. She smiled, a little too brightly, and said, "Oh, that. I totally forgot to tell you. That's a birthday gift for Sarah. You know, my coworker's wife." She took the box from me, her movements quick and a little jerky. "Her birthday is next week, and a few of us from the office chipped in to get her something nice. Isn't it pretty, Sarah?" "Your coworker's wife," I repeated, trying to place the name. I didn't know many of her coworkers, let alone their spouses. "Yeah, it's really nice," I said, forcing a nod. "She'll love it." I tried to believe her. I really did. I wanted to believe that this was all just a big misunderstanding, a product of my own insecurities. The explanation was plausible, wasn't it? People buy gifts for their coworkers all the time. But the engraving, ... forever us. That felt way too personal for a group gift for a coworker's wife. It sounded like something you'd give to a significant other. Still, I let it go. Or at least, I pretended to. I went back to the laundry, my mind a tangled mess of doubt and suspicion. The words "forever us" echoed in my head. For the rest of the evening, I tried to act normal. We had dinner, talked about our day, watched another episode of her show. But there was a new, uncomfortable tension hanging in the air, a silence filled with everything I wasn't saying. I kept replaying the conversation in my head, scrutinizing her reaction, her tone of voice, her quick movements. Was I just being paranoid? Was I looking for trouble where there wasn't any? I felt guilty for doubting her, but that gut feeling, that knot in my stomach, it just wouldn't go away. Later that night, after she had gone to sleep, I couldn't rest. The image of the necklace was burned into my mind. I found myself reaching for my phone, my thumb hovering over the social media app. I felt like a stalker, a private investigator in my own life. It felt wrong, but the need to know was overwhelming. I searched for her company, then looked through the employee list until I found a name. Eric, the coworker she had mentioned. His profile was public. I scrolled through his pictures, vacation photos, posts about his favorite sports team, family gatherings. And then I found it. A post from just a few hours earlier. It was a photo of him and his wife, smiling happily at a restaurant. The caption read, "Early birthday dinner for my amazing wife, Sarah. Love you more, every day." My heart sank. There she was, Sarah, the woman the necklace was supposedly for. And around her neck, a completely different necklace. It was a gold chain with a circular pendant, nothing at all like the silver heart in the velvet box. I stared at the photo, the screen's glow illuminating my face in the dark room. The pieces clicked into place, forming a picture I didn't want to see. The "Forever Us" engraving. Her panicked reaction, and now this. This undeniable proof. It wasn't a gift for Sarah. It was a lie. A carefully constructed lie to cover up. What? Who was the necklace really for? And more importantly, who was it from? The questions swirled in my head, each one more painful than the last. There was no plausible deniability anymore. The trust I had desperately tried to cling to shattered into a million pieces. The necklace wasn't a gift for a coworker's wife. It was a secret, her secret. And I had just uncovered the first layer. I knew with a sickening certainty that this was just the beginning. I had to find out the truth, no matter how much it was going to hurt. My relationship was a house of cards, and I had just pulled out the one that was going to make it all come crashing down. That day, I decided I was done playing the fool. I was tired of the lies, the late nights, the vague excuses. I was tired of feeling like a stranger in my own home, married to a woman who was living a double life. The next time she told me she had a work dinner, a little switch flipped inside me. I didn't get angry. I didn't question her. I just nodded calmly and said, "That's a coincidence. I have to work late at the office tonight too. Don't wait up for me." She just smiled, that fake, distant smile I'd come to know so well, and left. But I wasn't going to the office. As soon as her car pulled out of the driveway, I was in mine, keeping a safe distance, my heart hammering against my ribs. My hands were slick with sweat on the steering wheel. Was I really doing this? Was I ready for what I might find? There was no turning back now. She drove for what felt like an eternity, leaving the familiar streets of our neighborhood behind. We went through the city center, and then she headed for the highway, driving out of town. My mind was racing. Where could she possibly be going? A work dinner 30 minutes out of town? The lie was so flimsy, so blatant, it was almost insulting. My stomach twisted into a knot. Part of me wanted to turn back, to go home and pretend this never happened, to cling to the fragile illusion of our marriage. But a stronger, colder part of me kept my foot on the gas. I had to know. I deserved the truth, no matter how ugly it was. I was following the trail of my own broken heart, and I had to see where it led. Finally, she pulled off the highway and drove into a small, quiet town. She parked in a dimly lit lot behind a little cafe, one of those places that looks charming from the outside but feels lonely at night. She turned off her engine and just sat there, her silhouette outlined by the faint glow of her phone screen. I parked a few rows back, my own engine off, hidden in the shadows. The waiting was the worst part. Every second stretched into a minute. What was she waiting for? Or who? My mind filled with scenarios, each one more painful than the last. The air in my car felt thick, suffocating. I felt like a spy in my own life, watching a drama unfold that I was supposed to be a main character in, but was now just a spectator. Then, a pair of headlights cut through the darkness. A sleek, silver car pulled into the spot right next to hers. For a moment, nothing happened. The world seemed to hold its breath. Then, the driver's side door of the silver car opened and a man stepped out. Even from a distance, I recognized him instantly. It was Eric, my so-called friend. He wasn't just standing there. He was smiling, a wide, confident grin. And in his hand, he held a single, perfect red rose. My blood ran cold. A single rose. It was such a cliché, such a classic romantic gesture, and it felt like a punch to the gut. This wasn't a work dinner. This wasn't catching up with an old friend. This was a rendezvous. A secret meeting between my wife and my friend. What happened next felt like a scene ripped straight from a cheesy romance movie. Only this was my real life, and it was a tragedy. She got out of her car, and her face lit up in a way I hadn't seen in years. Not for me, anyway. She practically ran towards him, and he opened his arms. She fell into his embrace, burying her face in his shoulder. He wrapped his arms around her, holding her tight, and I could see him stroking her hair. It was intimate. It was passionate. It was everything we weren't anymore. I just sat there in my car, frozen, watching them through my windshield. It was like I was watching a silent film, their movements telling a story that needed no words. My first instinct was to jump out of the car, to scream, to confront them right then and there. I wanted to smash something, to make them feel a fraction of the pain that was tearing me apart. But then a strange sense of calm washed over me. The anger, the rage, it was still there, but it was buried under a new feeling, a feeling of finality. This was it. The proof. The undeniable, heartbreaking truth. I slowly raised my phone. My hands were shaking, but my movements were deliberate. I started taking pictures. Click. A photo of them embracing. Click. A photo of him handing her the rose. Click. A photo of them laughing, their faces close together. Each picture was another nail in the coffin of our marriage. I wasn't just a husband anymore. I was a private investigator documenting the end of my own world. I stayed there for what felt like hours, but was probably only 10 minutes. I watched them walk into the cafe, hand in hand. He held the door open for her. She looked up at him, and even from a distance, I could see the adoration in her eyes. It was a look she used to give me. As the door swung shut behind them, cutting off my view, A profound shift happened inside me. The fiery rage I expected to feel just wasn't there. The crushing sadness was present, but it wasn't overwhelming. Instead, what I felt was a hollow, echoing sense of clarity. It was over. Really, truly over. There was no going back from this. No therapy, no long talks, no second chances could erase this image from my mind. In that moment, sitting alone in my car in a dark parking lot, I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel betrayed. I just felt done. The fight had gone out of me, replaced by a quiet, resolute acceptance. I put my phone down, the screen glowing with the evidence of her betrayal. I looked at the pictures one last time. It was all there in black and white, or rather, in full, vivid color. The smiling faces, the rose, the embrace. There was no ambiguity, no room for denial. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a choice she had made. And in that moment, I made my own choice. I wasn't going to be the victim anymore. I wasn't going to cry or beg or fight for someone who so clearly didn't want to be fought for. I started my car, the engine rumbling to life in the quiet lot. I didn't look back at the cafe. I didn't need to. The show was over. I put the car in drive and pulled out of the parking lot, heading back towards a home that was no longer a home, and a life that would never be the same. The road ahead was dark and unknown, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was the one behind the wheel. I was finally in control. Hey everyone, welcome back. If you've been following along, you know things have been ... complicated. For those of you just joining, my girlfriend Sarah told me she was working late, but I found out she was with her coworker, Eric. I spent the week gathering proof. Honestly, it felt like I was living someone else's life. My heart was a block of ice, but on the outside, I had to be the normal, loving boyfriend. Every text, every call was a performance. I felt like a fraud in my own relationship. The weight of what I knew and what she didn't know I knew was crushing. So I decided the charade had to end. That weekend, I planned a special dinner. I went all out. I went to the store, picked out the freshest ingredients, and made her absolute favorite dish. A rich, cheesy lasagna, just the way her mom used to make it. The whole apartment filled with this warm, comforting aroma. It was all so domestic, so normal, it was almost sickening. I set the table with our nice plates, lit a couple of candles. I wanted everything to be perfect, a perfect stage for the perfect storm that was about to break. She came home from work and her face lit up when she saw the setup. "Wow, what's all this for?" she asked, kissing me on the cheek. I just smiled and said, "I missed you. Thought we could use a nice night in." The lie tasted like ash in my mouth. We sat down to eat, and for a while, it was like old times. We talked about our day. We laughed at some silly stories. She was telling me about a new project at work, and the irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. She was so relaxed, so completely unaware. Part of me, a small, stupid part, wanted to just throw the evidence away and pretend none of it ever happened. To just live in this bubble of blissful ignorance. But I couldn't. We finished the main course and she was raving about the lasagna. "This is the best you've ever made," she said, her eyes shining in the candlelight. That was my cue. I took a deep breath, trying to steady the tremor in my hands. I reached into my pocket, my fingers closing around the cold, hard rectangle of my phone. I calmly placed it on the table between us and slid it across until it was right in front of her. On the screen was the picture. The one of her and Eric wrapped in an embrace outside that little cafe. Her hand was on his chest, her head resting on his shoulder. It wasn't just a friendly hug. It was intimate. It was secret. The clatter of her fork hitting the ceramic plate was deafening in the sudden silence. Her smile vanished, replaced by a pale, wide-eyed shock. Her whole body went rigid. The color drained from her face. She just stared at the screen, then looked up at me, her mouth opening and closing, but no words coming out. I kept my voice low, almost a whisper, but I made sure every word landed like a punch. "You said you were working late," I began. I paused, letting the weight of her lie hang in the air. "Funny thing is," I continued, "so was I." And then the dam broke. First came the stammering excuses. "It's not what it looks like, I swear." Then came the tears, big, fat tears rolling down her cheeks, smudging her makeup. She tried to grab my hand, but I pulled it away. She started blaming everything and everyone but herself. "It was the stress from work," she said. "The long hours." She claimed she was lonely, that I wasn't paying enough attention to her. She even tried to paint Eric as just a supportive friend, someone who was just there for her during a tough time, a work friend. The audacity was breathtaking. I just sat there, listening to this waterfall of deflection and blame, and I felt ... nothing. The love I had for her had been replaced by this cold, hard clarity. I let her cry it out for a minute. The sobs racked her body. It was a pathetic sight. All the warmth from the candles and the lasagna had evaporated, leaving a chilling cold in the room. When she finally quieted down, sniffing and wiping her eyes, I delivered the final blow. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I just looked her straight in the eye and said, "You know, for such a close work friendship, I figured your bosses should know how dedicated you both are to supporting each other. So I already mailed copies of these photos and the texts to your HR department. I addressed it to Susan, your head of HR. I believe you know her." The look on her face was something I will never forget. The tears stopped instantly. The panic that replaced them was pure, unfiltered terror. She started shaking her head, whispering, "No, you didn't. You wouldn't." Oh, but I would, and I did. I stood up from the table, the lasagna turning my stomach. "Let's see how your work friendship holds up now," I said. I told her to pack a bag and be gone by the time I got back. I walked out of that apartment, leaving her amidst the ruins of our relationship and her career, and for the first time in weeks, I could finally breathe. It wasn't a happy ending, not by a long shot, but it was an ending. And it was a new beginning for me. Thanks for listening to my story. It's been a journey, and sharing it has helped more than you know. Stick around for what comes next. The next morning, I watched as she packed her bags. Every folded shirt, every zipped-up suitcase felt like a punctuation mark at the end of a very long, very painful sentence. The air was thick with things unsaid, but honestly, what was left to say? The silence was heavy, but it was also clean. It was the sound of an ending. Later that day, my phone rang. It was an unknown number, but I had a feeling I knew who it was. I answered. A woman's voice, a little shaky but firm, said, "This is Eric's wife." My heart dropped for a second. Was this going to be another confrontation? Another wave of drama? But her next words surprised me. She said she'd seen the photos. She'd found them somehow, maybe through a friend, maybe she'd been suspicious all along. "I don't know the details, and I didn't ask," she said. "I just wanted to call and say thank you. Thank you for showing me the truth. You saved me from years of living a lie." Her words hit me in a strange way. Thank you. It felt odd. Here was another person whose world had just been shattered, just like mine, and she was thanking me. I muttered something like, "I'm sorry you had to find out this way," but she insisted. She said, finding out, as brutal as it was better than the slow poison of deceit. We talked for a few more minutes, two strangers connected by the same betrayal. It was a bizarre, almost surreal conversation, but it was also incredibly human. We weren't enemies, we were just two people who had been caught in the same storm. I didn't feel like a hero. Not at all. I felt like a survivor, and it sounded like she was one too. Hanging up the phone, a profound sense of clarity washed over me. I wasn't just relieved, I felt free. It was like a massive weight I didn't even realize I was carrying had just been lifted off my chest. The weight of suspicion, the weight of doubt, the weight of trying to hold together something that was already broken. It was all gone. As my wife carried her last box to the door, she paused. She turned to look at me, her eyes filled with a mix of regret and something else I couldn't quite name. She said softly, "I never meant to hurt you." I looked at her, the woman I had loved, the woman who had shared my life, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel anger or sadness. I just felt done. The words came to me, not from a place of malice, but from a place of finality, of pure, unadulterated truth. I replied, my voice steady, "Then you should have stayed hungry instead of feeding your lies." It wasn't a comeback. It wasn't for revenge. It was just the truth. She had a choice, and she chose to betray, to lie, to feed that part of herself instead of honoring what we had. There was nothing more to say after that. She didn't respond. She just turned, opened the door, and walked out. The click of the lock behind her was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. And just like that, that chapter of my life was closed. Standing alone in the quiet apartment, I didn't feel empty. I felt potential. The space she left wasn't a void. It was an opportunity. It's an opportunity to rebuild, to rediscover who I was without her. For so long, my identity had been tied to being a husband, to being part of a we. Now, it was just me. And that was scary, but it was also exciting. The past few days had been a whirlwind of pain and chaos, but at the end of it all, I found something I had lost along the way: myself. The path forward wasn't going to be easy. I knew that. There would be lonely nights and moments of doubt. But for the first time, I felt like I was in control of my own story again. The lies were gone. The secrets were out. All that was left was the truth and the future. And for the first time in a long time, I was ready to face it. The door closed and a new one opened. My journey was just beginning. Thank you so much for following this story all the way to the end. It's been a raw and honest journey, and your support has meant the world. If you've been through something similar, remember that endings are also new beginnings. If you enjoyed this series, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories. We'll see you in the next one.